The topic is the role of spirituality in consulting psychology. And I wanted to do this because so many people shy away from it. Yet, when you read some popular books on executive leadership, they'll tell you how important it is for senior executives to be in touch with and grounded in their own spirituality, particularly as their worlds get uncertain. And, many companies conflate spirituality with proselytizing of a religious faith. Some companies actually do that, but most don't. So they stay away from it, and as consultants, we stay away from it. But I have to say, over the course of my career, I found any number of appropriate times to incorporate spirituality into coaching, without proselytizing, but to have a dialogue that changes the course of things. And so I'm thrilled to host this conversation, but especially thrilled that Colin Cooper is joining us. And let me take a minute and tell you about our friend here. Colin's an industrial organizational psychologist. She actually was the first female Black PhD out of the University of Maryland in that field. But she's gone on to be an organization development consultant, someone who integrates different worldviews. She has her own firm, but she's been an adjunct faculty at the University of Maryland. She's a retired tenured professor at Bowie State University. She serves on the editorial board of OD Review, which is Organization Development Review of the National OD Network. And in fact, she was one of the editors of a special edition on organization trauma in the workplace, for that. Fabulous stuff, which also contributes her own article on transformative healing. In fact, we're going to just put that in the chat box at some point, so you can just download that stuff and look it over. Colin's happy sharing it with you, and it's a great added resource. And beyond the professional work, mother of 3 adult children, 6 grandchildren, and a member of the Buddhist organization, Soka Gakkai International. So we have our colleague who is professional in so many ways to help initiate this conversation. And with that, Colin, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have a really packed a lot of information. I'm going to run through it sort of quickly so we can get time to dialogue. A lot of the terminology and expressions that I use is written into the paper. So if you get a chance, you can, and you probably are familiar with lots of the information. Anyway, these are my operational definitions of things. They may not be exactly how you would define it, but most of the terminologies are my operational definition, and they're based upon literature review, my Buddhist faith, and other things along that line. So I just didn't pull things out of the bag, but welcome. Can you help me out? And would you put in the chat your name, maybe your occupation, and perhaps one principle that guides your life? And I'm going to, in that, try to share my screen and get for it and move forward. And Karen is going to help me in case it doesn't happen the way I want it to happen. Right, Karen?
You got it.
Okay. Let's see what this is. Let's try this window. Nope, that one didn't.
Perfect. That's it, Colin.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see it, and then I can't see my notes, so I'll go to another screen. Okay, thank you so much. Can you still see this on the notes?
Yep. No, not your notes. We see the full screen presentation.
The full screen. That's what I want, because I'm going to try and switch to my notes. And I have this cursor that's moving from screen to screen. I do this every day, but some days it gets a little crazier. Okay, try it one more time because I don't see my notes anymore. Please bear with me.
You are full screen now.
Okay. The problem is I don't see the note, but I will just go for it. Okay, so I am not so much going to talk about fully what is religion, what is spirituality, and what you should do and how you should do it, because I think we all have to find what works for us. I will tell you about my journey and how I integrated in the work that I do, both as a coach, a healer, and an OD practitioner. I don't do a lot of IOI part anymore, outside of measuring and selection along that line, but I do a lot of transformation and change. So this is what I'm focusing on. moving toward a heart-centered consultant orientation based on universal, spiritual, mindfulness, and holistic principles. My colleague told me that universal and spiritual principles can be different, and they are in different cases, so I will delineate those for you. Okay. Did it move forward? Something's wrong. Can you see the screen isn't moving forward because mine is not working? Hello?
No, we're just seeing the first slide.
Okay. Sharing my screen first.
Karen, do you have the slide deck?
Yeah, maybe you have to do that.
I do.
I wonder
Yeah.
if you could, instead of stop sharing, Colin, let's do a quick audible. Karen, you
So
share
stop
your
sharing so
screen,
Karen can
post the
pull it up.
slide deck, and Colin will tell you when to advance slides.
Okay, yeah, because whatever 50 minutes of practice we did just is not working. Okay, I
Give
stopped
me
sharing.
one moment to bring it up. Yeah, you
Yep.
stop sharing and I will bring it up. You can keep talking, Colin, and I
Okay,
will get it.
so
to turn
anyway,
on.
what we're want to do, did everyone share out in the chat room so I can get a feel for who you are, since you know a little bit about me? Okay. You can go to the full screen.
Okay, are you seeing the slides?
Yes, yes, go to the next one. Okay, next. Sorry about the next. Okay, next. Okay, here are the intentions. I want to explore the role of spirituality, mindfulness, and holistic principle in consultant. I want to introduce you to my heart-centered consultant orientation. It's bedded, founded on spiritual mindfulness principle and holistic principle. I want to talk to you about what it means to be a transdisciplinary organization science practitioner and the approach I take. And then I want to talk to you about the strategy, the modality I use to help people become more heart-centered and align themselves with higher levels of consciousness so they enhance their creativity, flexibility, levels of trust and openness. And then we'll take a 20 or 30 minute break and move forward. Is that good? Next, please. Okay, but before I do that, one of the things that is key to my work and what I define as a heart-centered approach is, can everyone see me okay? Or if you need to see me, because I may be sitting a little lopsided. Everyone can see me okay?
Yeah, angle your screen back a little bit to get your face.
Okay.
That's better.
There you
Okay,
go.
sounds good. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want you to kind of sit in your chair comfortably because we're going to experience some of what I do with my clients to let them integrate the wholeness, the mindfulness, the sense of spirituality, energy vibration. I want you to sit quietly and you can keep your eyes open or you can think, but I want you to listen to what I'm saying. We're opening sacred space. Why do we open sacred space? Sacred space is an opportunity to communicate, and we honor sacred space because there are many energies, entities, and other resources around us that we want to pull in, not just our intellect. But I start off saying, I am composed of mind, body, and spirit. I bring my authentic whole self to all spaces. When I am in alignment with my higher self, my enhanced consciousness, my Buddha nature, God, source, I operate and vibrate at a high frequency and thus attract positive, high vibrational people and situations to me. I create my world, my environment, my thoughts, words, attitudes, all of the above. So turn off my phone. I attract the people and opportunity and targets that I need to engage in the work that I want to offer. I am source align with source, and I create my reality. Okay. How does that fit with anyone? Did that sound really foreign, or is that something you can tap into? Any thoughts? Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Now this is who we are and what we can do. And when you look at this person, they're at their peak capacity. It says, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. All starts with your mind, your belief, your own eternal power. Much of my work is built upon the work of my Buddhist leader, the Ikeda, old Egyptian spiritual principles, mindfulness principle, and holistic principle. And so I bring these things to you. It is founded on psychology, positive psychology, but because I am a whole person, mind, body, and spirit, I include so much more. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. Who am I? Move forward. I'm thinking Mark. Two back. Go back two. Thank you. One more. Who am I? I am an eclectic psychologist. I'm a transdisciplinary psychologist. I am a person who brings all of me to my work. Many years ago, I did not bring all of whom I was to my work. And that includes my background, my language, my spirituality, my healing modality. I felt ashamed of it. I felt incomplete. I felt it was not psychology. And so I did not bring it to my work, but I felt incomplete. And so I made a vow to say that I need to bring all of who I am to my work, because we are spiritual people and we must bring who we are. Now, I just got a note that said that a few of these slides may not be updated. I might have sent one of the slides that's not the most recent, but we'll work through these. Next slide. These are people I want to acknowledge. Next slide. Okay, here's some shared language. I want to share with you, I don't think we can switch them out, so I'm hoping that their slides are not too much out of order. We're just going to go with it because we don't have a lot of time. I want to explain to you what is a conscious enhancement heart-centered approach. I want to talk to you about what is healing, what is my focus, hue, energy, alignment process, what does empowerment mean, and higher self. Next slide. Okay. The conscious enhancement piece is a philosophy and orientation to life that guides people's attitude about the work. It is how you treat people. It's embedded in compassion, humanity, interconnectedness, and it guides people's attitude in the workplace and at home and in all the environments that we encounter. Next slide. The benefits of the conscious enhancement piece, orientation. Well, let me back up because the slides are throwing me off. I'm going to be very informal here because my slides are thrown off and I don't know. I had someone working whether we can work through it, but let me just back up and tell you what happens. I develop a conscious enhancement piece because I found that my work was void of a lot of the practices that I did with my client. The goal of the conscious enhancement piece was to help people pull from their higher self, their heart energy, their heart center. Much of research shows that heart energy, the heart is what matters. When you change a person's heart, you can change a person's behavior. You can always change the structure and the policies in an organization. But if you don't change that individual and help them to undergo deep transformational change, then you may have the same repeated behavior. Now, if you would go back one slide, because these are out of order, but we're going to work with this. Go back one slide. So what I did was I researched the literature. I examined what were some of the characteristics that promoted humanistic behavior in organization. I looked at literature that looked at, examined how could we overcome oppression and racism and sexism in organization. And I looked at literature that examined how do people become more creative, more innovative. How can people bring their true self to the workplace? And that was my purpose. So what I did was to develop a conceptual framework that I call the conscious enhancement heart-centered mindset. I now call it only a heart-centered mindset, but the conscious enhancement piece was earlier because you had to elevate your consciousness in order to develop this mindset. And the literature suggested that servant leaders were leaders who basically portrayed a heart-centered mindset. People who had high emotional intelligence or acted on strong emotional intelligence, they tend to display heart-centered behaviors. But in general, this is an orientation to life. And I have developed the components, dimension of the written out in my paper, and I have used those model to both train people and make recommendation about promoting people based upon that model once the organization agreed with the dimension: compassion, humanity, innovation, creativity, and high emotional intelligence. So next slide. The benefits of the heart-centered mindset are people are less resistant to change. Okay, we have one person, and I'm really sorry about this, about the slide. Ms. Brawley is one of my colleagues. She has an updated version, and she will share her screen. Karen, can you give Ms. Brawley access to share the screen?
I sure will.
Okay, and as I said, I'm really sorry, but we'll go through it because this is informal. I want you to understand the process. The process was me defining, understanding that I thought that many of the models, the OD model, the transformation models that I was using was void.
And just to make an audible, Colin, let's
Yeah.
adapt the time. Don't feel like you got to adhere to the half hour before breakout. Take the time you
Okay.
need, and then we'll go into discussion because I
Okay,
do think
because
you
I
have
want to go
a
for it.
message we should hear.
Okay, go back a little bit more, and because I said this wrong one. One more. Okay. Okay, so here I am. We had the question, who am I? I am a transdisciplinary psychologist. Here are the things, and that is a person who go across discipline to find the tools, the resources, the conceptual framework that fit the situation. I do not approach organization with one tool. I try to assess what is going on. What are the tools that I need in addition to the IO psychology, in addition to the OD, in addition to the social psychology? I use social psychology. I use African-centered psychology, Gestalt psychology, transpersonal psychology, positive psychology, my Buddhism, neuroscience theory, conceptual framework, mindfulness, meditation, all of that. And environmental psychology, feng shui, color, all that, to bring to my work. Because what do I want to do? I want to have the right tools, and I want to make transformation in the individual and the organization. So that's who I am as a transformational psychologist, but I'm going to only talk more about the spiritual, the holistic, and the mindfulness piece today. Next slide. These are some of the terms that I started to define. We're going to skip through that and go forward. Okay, the foundation of my work as I am today is that I believe that individuals are composed of mind, body, spirit, and energy. That's the foundation. IO psychology tend to deal with the mind and the body. What are the physical characteristics? What are the intellectual characteristics that we might need for this job? The spiritual and the energetic piece, some people will say, oh, Dr. Cooper, that's the other characteristics that's in the competency. Maybe yes or maybe no, but not in the way we assess them. So I take the foundational piece that we start from the fact that human beings are mind, body, and spirit. Human beings compose organizations and groups. Therefore, they bring all those dimensions with them. And on the right-hand side is the energy body. The energy body, you can think of it as acupuncture, meridians, chakras. There's research that substantiate chakras and meridian and energy centers. So I don't want to cite the researchers in my paper. And so I address these issues in these dimensions when I do my work. Next slide. Okay, as I was saying, my earlier work, I was saying, much of organizational science, IO science, they neglect the mind, body, and spirit. So I need to bring this in. Also, I believe that a limited amount of the variance and in IO and OD is not accountable. Only a limited amount is accountable when we try to empower people, heal them, and make transformational change. So we are only using certain dimensional aspect, then we're missing a lot of the variance in healing, predicting, and I want to bring in more of the variability. I want to change, influence, predict, manage, not necessarily control. So that was another reason. And lastly, I thought that although organizational psychology and organizational science, they were very good at measuring and in some ways changing, influencing behavior, but it was not deep-seated change. It was superficial surface change. True transformation comes when you really have a radical shift in the person or the ideology of the organization or the culture. So I wanted to investigate and create a tool, a philosophy where I was dealing with more radical change. Everybody's with me? Not trying to bore you. I'm just trying to give you my conceptual framework. Next. So I started to look at what are some principles that I think are important that are not addressed in my work as an IO psychologist. There are universal and spiritual principles that are not addressed. These are 12 universal principles that I use to guide my work. What is a universal principle? A universal principle is not religion. These are a natural principle that explains the behavior, the nature of things, and they cut across all religion, all philosophical orientation. This is my operational definition. Go back one more. One of the key one is divine oneness. Can somebody tell me what they think divine oneness means?
Connection with creation.
That's good. It also means that we are all interconnected. And if we are all interconnected, we need to act like we are all interconnected. And when one person fails, the whole system can fail. And when one person prospers, another person can prosper. And beyond that, it says that we are connected to not only people, but the energy, the rocks, the trees, the flowers, and all that. We have an impact upon them. Second one, which is important to me, vibration. Vibration means that all individuals and all things vibrate at a certain frequency. This is based upon metaphysical and physics. We have a certain vibration, and in order for us to change and heal, we need to shift our vibration. And how do we shift our vibration? Not only your knowledge base, but you need to shift your vibrational pattern. So I started incorporating work techniques and tools that shifted. Okay. And the rest of them, there are many other, but we can look them up later. But I just want to, you heard of cause and effect? And the last one I want to just say, being versus do. Our society is based upon always doing something. As we transform and change and move to a new culture, we need to think about being in the present. That's the mindfulness part of it. Next slide. Okay, so out of these universal and spiritual principles, I am based upon research, as I said, review the literature about what things were correlated with humanistic behavior, what things were correlated with greater innovation and change in organization. I developed this orientation mindset that was called a heart-centered mindset, and it involves high use of emotional intelligence, compassion, interconnectedness, cause and effect, interdependence, those variables that much of the literature says is useful for team effectiveness, organizational growth, employee commitment, all of those. But they're fundamentally based upon spiritual principle as well as traditional IO benefits. Once again, when we create a organization or group that's based on a heart-centered principle, we find we have more innovativeness, humanistic behavior. People become more flexible, greater teamwork. We operate from a win-win philosophy, and the individuals are guided by a universal truth that are good for all. Next. Next slide, please. Okay, now, how do I go about creating heart-centered mindset and orientation, and creating innovation, transformation, etc.? I have a strategy that I have referred to. It's called focus hue alignment process. It's a methodology that helps people move to a higher level of consciousness, become more heart-centered. It is a methodology that helps people internalize learning. It's a methodology that can help open up trust in the group and commitment. The primary goal or the outcome of when people go through this process, they become less judgmental. They engage in less limiting behavior. They have enhanced creativity, openness to trust, etc. But also my research, and this is actual data we collected after intervention, we showed that many people in groups became less racist, oppressive, and sexist, either in their groups, the larger organization, or society at large. When we've looked at the difference between people who were heart-centered or not heart-centered, and when we did assessment, deep level transformational change, pre and post, we found these kind of behavior change. Next slide. Some of the assumptions, as I said, of my heart-centered model and the focus hue energy alignment is that we always honor the space we are in, and we always open sacred space in whatever way. I open it in the way I did, but you can open it in any way you want. Lots of time you go in a meeting, people act like you don't exist. You know, they just pull out the gender, they act like you're a robot. So we want to slow things down, get people grounded in their truth, and move forward. We show gratitude. Another assumption is that in the focus hue alignment process and et cetera, we focus on gratitude. We also find that people who have an internal locus of power tend to engage in more heart-centered activity and behavior. And also people who are heart-centered and undergo the process, they start to realize the law of abundance. What is the law of abundance? Anybody have an idea what the law of abundance is? Lack of scarcity. They start to realize I don't have to have a win-lose orientation. There's plenty for all. And the more I believe that, acting that manner, the more resources, more abundance I can get, whether it's health, whether it's resource, whether it's employee commitment, all that. You have to believe that. And we found that we perpetuated that in our group, and the individuals in the group started acting out, and they found that they got more commitment, more cooperation, more resources. And the next one is they engage in a win-win philosophy. Secondly, next slide. Other assumptions, and I might have gone over this one, I'm going real quickly, is that this focus hue energy alignment process can start at the individual level, and then we can work with the group, and then it goes to the organizational level. Why do I believe that? First of all, people compose this group, groups composes the organization. People create the group behavior, the organizational culture. People can change it. And it's not, policies and practices do not happen in isolation. It's a function of the people. Another assumption of the model and the approach is this is a gestalt. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You heard that before? Anybody know? Maybe you don't believe it, but we got to remember, y'all know this. I'm just saying we need to remember these things and bring it out and see what our work is doing. And when we work with leaders and employee members, we got to assess their underlying assumptions and value and what things they're operating from, because a lot of time their premises and their principles are faulty, and it does not lend to creativity and commitment and success because they're operating from faulty principles. Last one is that I believe in the energy, spiritual body, and you can change individuals by changing their consciousness and vibration, and they change their attitude. And it's also based on a lot of neuroscience findings too. Next slide. Here's what happens. And the focus view alignment process is an energetic, attitudinal balancing that was used to help groups move from a static, maybe unsuccessful state to where they learn to give up those old beliefs, those limiting behavior, they develop more trust, and then they can start to visualize the future, the outcomes. Now, have you ever tried to do strategic planning with some group and they're stuck in the past and they can't even visualize? So what I'm saying, we need to unfreeze that. We need to do what we can to get people to shift that energy before they can even visualize something greater. And some of the energy tools, the mindfulness tools that we've used, shown that people became more creative, more commitment, had greater, better visions, and were able to implement it once they were able to shift their energy. Next slide. Just really quickly, we're not going to pause because we're going to pause, period. We're going to move forward on what time we have, okay? And now, period. One more slide, and then we're going to go on to breaks. I'll just go through the next slide. I just want to show them something, because when we break, you're saying this girl is crazy. She's an IO psychologist. She's measurement. She's training in all of them. Why she's talking this woo-woo things? These are some of the tools that my coaches, my counselors, my trainers have used to unfreeze people, to get them to move out of that static state and move to a higher level of consciousness to help them move to the desired state. I'm not saying that this is what I do only. I'm saying I bring this work into my technical training, into my strategic planning, in my conflict resolution. I bring these tools in as need be. And so on this note, I'm going to go forward to encourage us to go to break, because I have 6:40 and my facilitator is encouraging me to go through. We can skip through this. I was going to show you how this relates to the old static model. This is just saying that the alignment process can work at individual level, because we have change in structure and process. Go forward. The OD people, I'm quite sure you know this. Next one. And this last one, then we'll move forward. Okay. This is a really watered down version of how we integrate a lot of energetic spiritual strategy and tools into the system. We always, whatever our intervention, we open with some type of sacred space. We get people grounded, cleared, whatever. It might be coffee, maybe it's walking exercise, maybe it's quietness. And then we go for whatever traditional IO strategies and technique we're using. But throughout the process, we're getting people to engage in mindfulness activity, reflection, quietness. We're getting them to do visualization. And at the end of each day, we get them to close down by reflecting on what happened, putting forth plans for the future, and then we end with some type of closing space. So it's just a step. Basically, what I'm saying to you is that I use a lot of energetic, spiritual, holistic principle integrated into my traditional technique to reinforce, to open people up, and then to reinforce what is happening, and then to seal it, the learning, the intervention. And I work with people individually too, as well as with groups. So that is my quick overview, backwards steps, switching slides. And I wanted to leave some time and have you, we can stay in breakout groups if we want to, or we can go in groups of threes and talk about, is this just woo-woo? Have you used this before? Does this address anything that you think is important? Is it really integrating any spiritual or energetic principle into what we do as IO psychologists, consultant psychologists, educators, etc.? How many people do we have? 11? Okay.
We
y'all-
have nine total. So do you still want to do the breakout rooms?
We have what, 20 minutes left, or 15?
15.
We can, I think it might be good for us just to have a dialogue right here and see what people think about this. As I said, it was not presented as smoothly as I like, but I wanted to introduce you to the model, the idea, and as I said, I'm in the process of validating it with empirical data. It was based upon a conceptual framework, and I've been using it for the last 4 years in successful client interventions.